welcome to another episode of Sam Has a Spending Problem. I'm your host Sam, and today we have a review of the 3 cheapest RGB mechanical keyboards that I could find on Amazon. So stick around and you'll find out what I love and hate about all 3 of these keyboards. So on our list today we have the Aukey Mechanical TKL Gaming Keyboard, RGB, backlit with clicky blue switches, compact 87 key, 10 keyless wired keyboard with anti-ghosting programmable macros and software for typist and gamer. Does anybody else think that Amazon should put like an 100-word limit on some of these product titles? For the sake of your time and mine, I'm just gonna call this one the Aukey. It came out at $44 and change. And no surprises, it's my favorite keyboard out of the 3. The next is the Red Dragon K552 Mechanical Gaming Keyboard. This came in at $34.99, and it's also the only one on the list that I didn't get with clicky switches. This one has quote-unquote linear switches. And lastly, we have the Pictek TKL Mechanical Gaming Keyboard, which came in at $22.39. So to start off, let's just get this out of the way. None of these keyboards are good. They're not good mechanical keyboards, but they're also not expensive. I've bought drinks in Atlantic City that are more expensive than some of these keyboards. That being said, just because something isn't super expensive doesn't mean that it should just suck ass. If you're gonna sell a product, whether it's inexpensive or not, there should at least be some effort put in. And at the risk of sounding like I'm on a soapbox, that seems to be the problem with all of Amazon nowadays. Way too many products, not enough quality control. It's quantity over quality. But back to the keyboards. Let's start with the Pictek. This thing is exactly what you would expect from a $22 keyboard that you bought off Amazon. Its all plastic design is super flimsy. The built-in cable looks like a 5 Below charger that was in the clearance section. It says that there's 27 different RGB modes, but I couldn't tell because the RGB is so dim. The keycaps are also double shot, but not ABS or PBT like you would expect. It's more like the plastic that they use for a gallon of water. The switches are also super flimsy, like the caps have so much flex from left to right that it felt like I was gonna break them off when I was testing them. I'm gonna give you guys like 10 seconds of the typing test and then we're moving on because this thing isn't worth anyone's time. Next we have the Red Dragon. The weird thing about this is that I used to have this exact same keyboard with the clicky switches and it wasn't bad. It was actually a kind of nice keyboard and the RGB was bright, the switches felt good, the keycaps felt good. This one is the polar opposite of all of that. The switches feel awful, the RGB isn't very bright, the firmware is garbage, it's really hard to figure out how to switch the RGB around consistently because sometimes the switches just don't work. And about the switches, they're not linear, they're mushy. Kind of like if you lubed a Gatoron brown with mashed potatoes. And again, the RGB is super dim. It's not like on the old one where it was so bright that I actually had to turn it down. This one, I can barely tell what the RGB is trying to do. All that being said, this is another keyboard that I would pass on. Even if you like the price tag, it's just not worth it and you're gonna hate it within a month. And you're gonna wonder why you didn't just save up the extra 50 bucks and get a good keyboard. Onto the Aukey. Now this is the only one on the list that is actually somewhat pleasurable to type on. The other things that are different about this one compared to the other ones is the high profile and the RGB that you can actually see. The RGB isn't terrible. It reminds me of the old red Dragon keyboard that I had. It's not super bright, but it is okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give the RGB like a 5.5. The clicky switches aren't terrible, but they're not great either. It's kind of airy, would be the word I use. And the keycaps aren't terrible either. They're not great, but they're not terrible. That's kind of the story with this keyboard, is that it's not great, but it's not awful either. And the cable is actually braided, and it doesn't end in some stupid, hyper-stylized bullshit like the other two do. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I give this one a meh. It's not complete dog shit like the other two, but it's not great either. So in conclusion, I guess the moral of this review is don't buy a mechanical keyboard for under $50 on Amazon, because more likely than not, it's gonna suck. If you're a kid and you don't have the resources to buy a real high-end keyboard, try to think of it like this. If you save up for an $100 mechanical keyboard from one of the big brands like Razer or Corsair, you're getting more than double the quality, and it's gonna last you a lot longer than one of these keyboards is. I didn't time test these in my review, obviously, but I can guarantee you that none of them are gonna make it past a year. They just don't have the quality. So anyway, that's it for today. Let me know down in the comments if you have any requests for something that you'd like me to review, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. God damn, those were an awful nightmare.